Hi, I'm Andy Nelson, Director of Account Management at Currencycloud, and welcome to this fireside chat between Currencycloud and Privalgo. By way of introduction, today's guest is Matthew Clarke, Director and Founder of Privalgo, one of the UK's leading FX payment and risk management solutions for corporate and high net worth individuals. Welcome, Matt. Great to see you. Thanks for joining. How are you?
Hi, Andy. I'm very well, thank you. Very well, and thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, great to see you. So if we can kick off, what I'd like to do is just start passing over to you. If you could introduce Privalgo and to share a bit more information about your role there.
Great, thanks, Andy. So we're a business that's regulated by the FCA as an electronic money institution. And as you mentioned, there are sort of two main arms to our business. One is the FX risk management solution side. So that's where we work with primarily sort of SME and large corporates, helping them to manage their international cash flows, their treasury needs. And obviously that could be anything from simply just helping them get the best rate for their spot trade when they have some sterling to convert into dollars, or it could be looking at fairly sophisticated and complex hedging strategies to manage longer term inflows of currency over sort of 1 year to 5 years. And the other side of it is the payment side, which is probably the quickest growing part of our business. And that is where we're working with businesses in e-commerce, insurance, finance, and ultimately helping them to send their payments faster, quicker and cheaper and easier across the globe. And we're a business that is quite young. You know, we're now in our 4th year of trading. We started in January 2019. So it's been a pretty quick growth story. You know, we've gone from 11 people up to 60 now. And from a standing start, we will probably turn over this year £2.5 billion of client transactions, and anything around sort of 150,000 to 200,000 payments. So we have grown quite quickly and through quite interesting times with COVID and everything else that's going on at the moment. So it's been a very interesting journey, but one that's been excellent, and certainly one that I've found very fulfilling and learned a lot from. That's for sure.
For sure, I think the last few years have been particularly turbulent. But it'd be really interesting to say that wasn't the start of your career in this industry. So I'd love to get a bit more information, a bit more detail from you about your background. And also for those of you who may not know the Privalgo story so far, why you started the business as well.
Yeah, so my background has always really been in foreign exchange and payments. So I left university, went traveling, and then sort of got into the space. Started off at one of our competitors, and you know, very much a junior role. I was on the business development side, sort of hit the ground running, really enjoyed it and sort of got some success and really just rose up and developed my career from there. So I sort of entered managerial roles, heading up the UK sales team. And then my last position there was heading up our international, or sort of the early stages of the international sales desk at that business. And it was excellent. You know, I had a great time. It went from being a sort of founder-led, family-orientated business, if you like, you know, very fun, you know, sort of the whole hard, you know, work hard, play hard sort of philosophy, learned loads, and had some really good experiences. And then sort of circa 2017, sort of towards the end of that year, things started to change. You know, there was new ownership. I won't go into all the details, but that was when we sort of decided, got a bit disillusioned with the business and where it was going. So myself and my other 3 business partners, we actually decided to leave that business, and that's how Privalgo was born. And I suppose that's the start of the story. So, you know, we, you know, as a business, and I don't want to sort of go into too much detail, but the reason why we were disillusioned, it just felt that everything was being done, and the decisions that were being made was to aid the business. You know, how could it become more cost effective? How could it make more money? You know, how could it drive more revenue? Which, you know, that's perfectly fine for a business. But there wasn't any focus on the client journey. You know, there wasn't any sort of long-term vision on how the regulatory climate of the industry was changing, how technology was going to change and sort of aid the client journey. So we decided that we could actually start our own business and start to try and look at these things and do it better, essentially. And as I say, that's how Privalgo was born. As 4 individuals who had never sort of started a business ourselves, there was a huge amount to learn, and it was a really steep learning curve. But I think because of our experience, I've been in the industry for sort of 13 years, and my colleagues, one of them had been in 25 years. We'd all got a huge amount of experience. I think that really gave us a good platform to sort of hit the ground running, and the network was invaluable. So obviously, when you start up a business, there's a few routes you could go down, and one would be the white label route, where you use somebody like Currencycloud, to sort of set up all of the technology and the infrastructure. But we wanted to do it ourselves. We wanted to try and make everything proprietary. So we were able to set up a banking line with Lloyds, which was excellent. They supported us, which is pretty unheard of for a startup. Then obviously it was about building the tech stack, and we wanted to try and take advantage of the latest fintech that was available, the likes of Revolut, TransferWise, but then combine that with the sort of client-facing side, making sure it was relationship first, actually being able to sort of handhold clients and guide them, and sort of give them guidance on strategy, etc. Sort of bridge the gap between the sort of traditional brokerage private banking model and the sort of fintechs like Revolut, TransferWise. That was sort of the ethos of the business. And then, of course, it was about sort of go live, which we actually sort of got into our new office, which is where we are now, November 2018. Like I say, 11 people, and that's really where the growth story started. And I think some of the sort of core pillars that we wanted to build the business from was one of them was actually compliance. So, a lot of businesses see that as things have been called business prevention unit and all the rest of it, it can be seen as prohibitive to doing business, but we really saw it as an enabler. So we built all of our own sort of reg tech, transaction monitoring, which is obviously evolving all of the time. But we just want to try and always stay certainly on pace, if not ahead of the curve on the compliance side, which we've done really well. And I think has enabled us to grow quickly and also get the banking relationships that we have. That's obviously really important to us. And then the second was the client journey. We built our technology with the client in mind. How's that going to make their lives easier? Make processes simpler and quicker, but also try and get the technology in back office to do and compliance to do the heavy lifting for us. So we don't have to have massive teams in settlements and compliance, and we can just focus on front of house and the client-facing side of the business. And like I said, we're sitting here now with 60 people, and the business has grown significantly.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's really good stuff there. So were there any particular problems that you encountered along the way, or you kind of touched on them, but maybe you can develop it out a bit more? Was there a particular problem that you were trying to solve when launching Privalgo?
Yeah, I think just trying to, transparency was a big thing for us. And I know that's an easy sort of throwaway comment that people use, but, the foreign exchange world and how it's priced can all be a little bit murky and not very clear. And certainly that's what I've found throughout my career. And a lot of sort of acquisition of clients is really important for us, and it's about trying, I guess it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of resource to win clients. So it's all about then retaining them, and having transparent pricing in place and a transparent relationship is absolutely key to that. So on our platform, which I think is quite unique, when a client logs on and they want to do an FX trade, it actually comes up with the spread, the pricing that we've agreed with the client, and it's all really clear. It's on the contract note. So there's no sort of games or anything like that. The client knows exactly where they are, and that just makes their lives a lot easier because they don't need to compare and look around. We're delivering what we promise. So I think that was a big sort of problem or issue or sort of challenge that clients face, which we hope that we're beginning to solve. And then I think the other side of it is just technology, really, just trying to take advantage of the tech that's available to try and make clients' lives easier when they're processing payments, doing reconciliation, getting reporting, all of those processes, which can be quite laborious for businesses, and actually people have to employ a team to sort of do, and the technology that we've built, we feel can actually make their lives a lot easier.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think this is a great point just to pause on and say there, one of the elements you raised was around being almost obsessively, compulsively focused on client problems and how you can solve those maybe in an innovative, different way to the other competitors or other players in the market, but also having an eye on scale as well.
Yeah.
So those two elements are super key to the success in this industry. So that's it's really interesting. So thanks for sharing that. What I actually wanted to move on to now is just talk about a bit more broadly about the industry. And the question I have there is, what are your thoughts on the future of the FX world for brokerages like Privalgo, like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think the climate for doing business has changed. For doing business in this industry has changed significantly. We've experienced it ourselves firsthand. The FCA or the regulatory framework for doing business has tightened. So there's much more of a focus on safeguarding, making sure all funds are ring fenced. The amount we've had to do, there's probably about 3 or 4 audits that we have to do a year to sort of make sure that we're complying with all of these regulatory practices. And obviously that's great. That's all for the client, and to make sure that everybody is operating in the right way and with the client in mind, and obviously security of funds for clients. But there's cost to that. There's resource. So I guess what I'm saying is that the route to market for businesses like ours now has become a lot more difficult and challenging. And I think that's why you've seen such a proliferation of sort of like white label businesses. There are a significant number out there currently, and I don't think there are many sort of new entrants to the market like Privalgo that I've seen sort of over the last 2 to 3 years. I think because of that reason. The other challenge is counterparties. We are sort of FX brokerages are seen as a high risk client for banks in some ways, and obviously that makes it difficult to get tier 1 banking relationships. So we've been fortunate, I think, partly because of our experience and our network, to be able to get a number of those. But also I think it's because obviously there's a very long drawn out process which goes into the ins and outs of the business and everybody involved. So you need to make sure that everything is in place and completely on track with the current regulations to be able to get those, and that again takes a lot of investment and time to be able to do that. I remember when I started this business many moons ago, and there were people within the company that I joined who were saying, "Oh, the industry's finished. There's no more opportunity. It's going to get sort of swallowed up by the banks." And obviously that hasn't happened. If anything, I think the opportunities become greater. If you look at the addressable market that we have, I think that something like £4 trillion of foreign exchange a day that's traded across through London. I think that just is. I know that I think this year there's something like $156 trillion worth of cross border payments that are estimated to happen, which is just growing exponentially. So it's a huge marketplace. So I think from that sense that there's always going to be opportunities for fintech players to sort of come in and take a slice of that. I also think that with technology that always means there's better ways of making payments, making it easier, quicker, cheaper. So the banks will never be able to dominate. And whenever they've sort of developed, obviously the online platform, the apps were the big thing over the last sort of 5 years. There's always going to be something else that comes out that they're going to have to catch up with, because obviously a lot of the more traditional banks and brokerages, they're working on legacy-based systems and technology. So I think having the agility to sort of pick up things quickly and try and take advantage of them is going to play to businesses like ourselves and other fintechs to their advantage, really. So I actually think it's quite an exciting time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All of that. Then I think the other element then is, will FX brokers be relevant in 5 to 10 years' time?
I think so, absolutely. Due to, at the end of the day, a business, an FX brokerage, which we are one like ourselves, really, we have to have banks. So whatever we do, a bank could essentially do, because obviously there's always going to be a bank used in the transaction. But because of economies of scale and the size of client bases, to a certain extent, sometimes the controls that the banks are under, they just aren't able to offer the same levels of service, the same proactivity that an FX specialist could offer. So I think that the regulations will change. The marketplace will probably change slightly, and then technology will change in 5 to 10 years. I mean, who knows? What will happen with payments there? Obviously, embedded payments and sort of making it all integrated and intuitive is, I think that's going to be the future. But I think there will always be a place for a business like ourselves. I do also think we are going through a period of consolidation. There's a lot of acquisitions happening at the moment. So the FX brokerage marketplace is changing. And I think that will probably continue, which for us just is, again, more opportunity. But I think there will always be a place for FX brokerages, certainly.
Great stuff. I think the opportunity you mentioned there about the addressable market, there's certainly a long way to go for Privalgo and similar companies who are focused on customer challenges. There's a runway there, a lot of growth potential there. So it's an exciting time still.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess just changing tack slightly, thinking about more recent events, we've had a pretty tumultuous time in the markets of late, and pretty volatile economic outlook. What impact are you already seeing in your business in Privalgo, and how are Privalgo helping customers to navigate through the turbulence?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been hugely volatile, and it does feel like there's sort of almost like a black swan event every 6 months at the moment. Obviously COVID, Ukraine, and now the recent fall in the pound, and the sort of inflationary pressures that we're under, which is creating a sort of new market cycle. To a certain extent, these periods are actually beneficial for us, because we FX risk management is obviously a big part of our business. So in periods like this, I think clients, again, it goes back to what I was saying about the banks. They do want to speak to somebody. They do want to get some guidance. They want some insight into what's happening. I mean, obviously, forecasters, you can take it with a pinch of salt. No one knows what's going to happen. I think the last 2 to 3 years has shown that. But people do want to try and get an understanding of, what the current climate is like, what potential implications are to their business, and most importantly, what instruments and strategies are available to them to make sure that they are managing the risk as effectively as they can. Obviously, there's always going to be an element of risk out there, but it's about trying to mitigate as much as you can, whilst giving flexibility to take advantage of certain opportunities, and obviously when your potential inflows or cash flows change as well. So I think obviously clients are concerned about the future. They're firstly concerned about their business, with the period that we're going in, and the recession, which I think is inevitable that we're going to go into, and a period of stagflation. Obviously that's concerning for businesses. But then on the FX risk side, we can try and take that off their shoulders and try and help with that, and at least alleviate one of those pressures that they're under. So I think, it's been very uncertain times, but for us as a business and for our client base, we're working through it, and I think actually in all these periods there's always opportunity as well.
Yeah, really, really well put. What is next for Privalgo? You think you've grown your product offering or entering new markets internationally? What does the future hold for you guys?
Yeah, so we at the end of last year, we sort of completed our initial 3-year business plan, which went very well. We sort of overachieved on the headline sort of financial KPIs, if you like. And then we decided that this year would be a period of reflection, really, just to sort of try and just take a step back, consolidate a little, because the 3 years, we'd grown very quickly. So this year was just about trying to plan for the future, and that's actually sort of coming to completion now. And we're sort of about next year embark on our 5-year business plan. And a large part of that will actually be to sort of get a global footprint. So we want to become a global platform for payments and FX risk management. So we are looking to sort of open an office in Europe, which will happen next year, I think, and then beyond from there. So that the sort of growing globally is going to be a big part of that 5-year business plan. We are very proud of the culture that we've built within this business. So trying to sort of maintain that as we grow is a massive part of that business plan. And I think obviously that's a challenge, but one that we're quite passionate about. I think we do have quite a fun-loving culture that we reward people. We're very much about development and growing talent, and we want to sort of maintain that as we grow. So it's a big part of it. And then it's, as you said, it's about the client journey and how can we improve our product range. Our alternative banking solutions is certainly something that's going to be a focus moving forward. Increasing our counterparty network so that we're able to offer more local payments, more FX products. We have just recently been authorized by the FCA, so we're now able to offer options and derivatives and offer investment advice. So that will be a big part of the business plan, and again, sort of moving that sort of globally. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, and I think really it's what we want to try, because there's a number of strands and areas routes we could go down, and we want to try and stay focused and do things well, of course, because all of our growth up to now has been organic. We took an initial investment, and whether we fundraise next is also another question, which could it could grow the business significantly and accelerate that growth, but then we may lose some of the the benefits that we have currently and some of the advantages of what we've built. So that's another big decision to make as well. But I'm very excited about the future. I think we've got an excellent team. We've got a sort of founder-led business, which is quite rare in the current marketplace. So I think with that experience, we can replicate what we've done in the UK market, internationally.
So you just started that section off by talking about a period of reflection. It sounds like it's going to be a very busy year of very deep thinking and planning out the next 5 years. It sounds like a really exciting time for everyone at Privalgo as well, Matt. So thanks for sharing that. Listen, we come to the end of the Q&A. So thanks very much for joining. It was really enjoyable. Great to chat with you. Now, for anyone who wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to do that is, obviously on our website, you can go on there, find out more information on Privalgo. And there's an area where you can actually register or request a callback. So please do, have a look at us and get in touch.
Great stuff. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me today, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Pleasure. Thanks, Andy. Great to speak to you.